A World Reborn. The Dawn of the Cold War, and the Seeds of the Space Race. The years between 1945 and 1957 were among the most transformative in modern history, as the conclusion of the Second World War set into motion profound shifts in global politics, economics, society, and technology. Emerging from the ashes of the most devastating conflict in human history, the world faced the dual tasks of rebuilding shattered nations and navigating the new tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. This period, marked by recovery, ideological rivalry, and groundbreaking innovation, bridged the war years with the dawn of the space age, creating a foundation for the challenges and achievements of the latter half of the 20th century. When the Second World War ended in 1945, much of the world lay in ruins. Europe, in particular, had suffered catastrophic damage, with entire cities reduced to rubble. The war's toll on human life was immense, with millions dead and millions more displaced. Nations faced immense challenges: rebuilding infrastructure, revitalizing economies, and providing for populations devastated by years of war. In this landscape, the United States emerged as a key player in global recovery, both economically and politically. Through the Marshall Plan, initiated in 1948, the United States provided over $12 billion in economic aid to Western European nations. This program was not only an act of humanitarian assistance but also a strategic move to curb the spread of communism by stabilizing democratic governments and revitalizing capitalist economies. While Western Europe rebuilt with American support, Eastern Europe followed a different path under the influence of the Soviet Union. As the Red Army swept across Eastern Europe in the final stages of the war, it established socialist governments aligned with Moscow's vision of a centrally planned economy. This divergence in reconstruction efforts underscored the ideological divide between the capitalist West and the communist East. Winston Churchill famously characterized this divide as an iron curtain in a 1946 speech, highlighting the geopolitical tensions that defined the post-war era. These tensions crystallized into the Cold War, an ideological and strategic rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union that would dominate global politics for decades. Although the two superpowers never engaged directly in armed conflict, their competition played out in proxy wars, espionage, and an arms race. Germany became a microcosm of this struggle, as the country was divided into West Germany, supported by the United States and its allies, and East Germany, controlled by the Soviet Union. Berlin, located within the Soviet-controlled zone, became a focal point of Cold War tensions during the Berlin blockade of 1948 to 1949. When the Soviet Union attempted to cut off access to West Berlin, Western allies responded with a massive airlift, supplying the city by air for nearly a year. This event demonstrated the lengths to which the United States and its allies would go to resist Soviet aggression, and protect democratic enclaves in a communist-dominated region. The Cold War rivalry extended into the realm of military technology, leading to a dangerous arms race. The United States, having developed and used atomic bombs in 1945, initially held a monopoly on nuclear weapons. However, this advantage was short-lived, as the Soviet Union successfully tested its own atomic bomb in 1949. Both nations then advanced to develop hydrogen bombs, exponentially more powerful than earlier atomic weapons. By the mid-1950s, both superpowers possessed vast nuclear arsenals, creating a precarious balance of power based on mutually assured destruction. The fear of nuclear war loomed large, shaping foreign policy decisions and fostering a climate of anxiety throughout the world. While the Cold War divided the world into opposing blocs, the decolonization movement was redrawing the political map of Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The weakening of European colonial powers during the war, coupled with growing nationalist movements, led to the dismantling of colonial empires. In 1947, Britain granted independence to India, and Pakistan, a process accompanied by widespread violence and the displacement of millions due to religious and ethnic tensions. The Dutch faced a similar struggle in Indonesia, where nationalist forces fought for independence, ultimately achieved in 1949. Meanwhile, in Vietnam, the First Indochina War, 1946–1954, ended with the defeat of French colonial forces at Dien Bien Phu, leading to the country's division into North and South Vietnam. Decolonization was not only a response to nationalist aspirations but also a reflection of shifting global dynamics. The United States and the Soviet Union, each seeking to expand their influence, often supported independence movements as a means of undermining European colonial powers. However, many newly independent nations sought to navigate a path independent of Cold War alignments. Leaders such as India's Jawaharlal Nehru and Egypt's Jamal Abdel Nasser championed the non-aligned movement, advocating for a third way that rejected both American capitalism and Soviet communism. Amid these geopolitical shifts, the post-war years were also a time of remarkable technological and scientific progress. The rapid advancements in technology that had been spurred by the war, radar, jet engines, and rocketry, continued into the peacetime period, often driven by Cold War competition. Nowhere was this more evident than in the dawn of the space age. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite to orbit the Earth. This milestone demonstrated Soviet technological prowess and marked the beginning of the space race, a key front in the Cold War. For the United States, Sputnik's success was a wake-up call, spurring increased investment in science education and the establishment of NASA in 1958. Scientific advances were not limited to space exploration. Medicine also saw significant progress during this period, with the development and widespread adoption of antibiotics like penicillin saving countless lives. In 1955, Jonas Salk introduced the polio vaccine, a breakthrough that helped combat one of the most feared diseases of the era. These advances, along with improvements in agricultural techniques and public health measures, contributed to rising life expectancy and improved quality of life in many parts of the world. The post-war period also brought significant social changes, particularly in the United States. The end of the war ushered in a period of economic prosperity, fueling a baby boom as birth rates surged. This demographic shift was accompanied by the growth of suburban communities, as families sought homes outside urban centers. Consumer culture flourished, with television sets, automobiles, and modern appliances becoming symbols of the era. At the same time, the seeds of the modern civil rights movement were being sown. In 1948, President Harry Truman desegregated the U.S. military, and in 1954, the Supreme Court's decision in Brown v. Board of Education declared school segregation unconstitutional. These milestones marked the beginning of a broader struggle for racial equality that would gain momentum in the 1960s. The years between 1945 and 1957 were far more than a transitional period between war and peace. They were a dynamic era of recovery, competition, and transformation. The world emerged from the devastation of the Second World War to rebuild and redefine itself, creating institutions and ideologies that would shape the remainder of the 20th century. The Cold War rivalry set the stage for global conflicts and innovations, while decolonization reconfigured political boundaries and power dynamics. Technological and scientific advancements opened new possibilities, from the eradication of diseases to the exploration of space. Social changes reshaped communities and laid the groundwork for future movements. In this remarkable period, humanity proved its resilience and capacity for reinvention, crafting a legacy that continues to influence the world today. In the following chapters, we will explore the post-war years, from the dawn of the nuclear era and the Cold War to the beginning of the space race. Forging Peace from Devastation. Drafting the UN Charter. In the crucible of the Second World War, as nations grappled with unprecedented devastation and the horrors of conflict, a flicker of hope emerged for a future defined by peace, cooperation, and shared responsibility. This aspiration found its embodiment in the drafting of the United Nations Charter in 1945, a landmark document that would lay the foundation for a new era of international relations. The genesis of the UN Charter can be traced back to the Dumbarton Oaks Conference in 1944, where representatives from the major Allied powers, the United States, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and China, convened to discuss the creation of a successor organization to the League of Nations. This conference laid the groundwork for the UN's structure, outlining the roles of the General Assembly, Security Council, Economic and Social Council, and International Court of Justice. However, the Dumbarton Oaks Conference left several contentious issues unresolved, notably the veto power of the permanent members of the Security Council, and the role of regional organizations. These issues, along with a myriad of other details, were to be finalized at the United Nations Conference on International Organization, UNCIO, held in San Francisco in April 1945. The San Francisco Conference was a momentous gathering of 50 nations, representing a diverse range of political systems, ideologies, and cultural backgrounds. The delegates, many of whom were seasoned diplomats and statesmen, engaged in intense negotiations and debates, seeking to reconcile divergent interests and forge a consensus on the principles and mechanisms of the new international organization. The drafting process was fraught with challenges and complexities. The delegates had to grapple with issues such as the definition of aggression, the role of the UN in promoting economic and social development, and the protection of human rights. The specter of the recently concluded war loomed large over the proceedings, underscoring the urgency and importance of establishing a robust framework for international peace and security. Despite the formidable challenges, the delegates at UNCIO demonstrated a remarkable spirit of cooperation and compromise. After weeks of intense negotiations, the UN Charter was finalized and signed on June 26, 1945. The Charter, a comprehensive document consisting of 111 articles, outlined the purposes, principles, and organizational structure of the United Nations. The Charter reaffirmed the sovereign equality of all member states, the prohibition of the use of force in international relations, and the peaceful settlement of disputes. It established the principal organs of the UN, including the Security Council, tasked with maintaining international peace and security, and the General Assembly, a forum for all member states to discuss and debate on global issues. The drafting of the UN Charter in 1945 was a pivotal moment in human history. It marked the birth of a new multilateral institution, imbued with the hope and aspirations of a war-weary world. The Charter, while not perfect, represented a significant step forward in the quest for a more just, equitable, and peaceful international order. The UN Charter has since become the cornerstone of international law, guiding the conduct of nations and providing a framework for addressing global challenges. While the UN has faced numerous challenges and setbacks over the years, its enduring legacy is a testament to the vision and determination of those who drafted the Charter in 1945. The Charter remains a beacon of hope, reminding us that even in the darkest of times, humanity can rise above adversity and strive for a better future. A struggle for independence. The Indonesian National Revolution. As the tides of colonialism receded across the globe in the aftermath of the Second World War, a fervent spirit of nationalism ignited in the hearts of the Indonesian people. This yearning for self-determination culminated in the Indonesian National Revolution of 1945, a protracted and multifaceted struggle that ultimately led to the nation's independence from Dutch colonial rule. The seeds of the revolution were sown during the Japanese occupation of Indonesia from 1942 to 1945. The Japanese, seeking to galvanize support for their war effort, fostered nationalist sentiments and encouraged the formation of indigenous political and military organizations. This inadvertently laid the groundwork for the future revolution. Following Japan's surrender in August 1945, a window of opportunity opened for Indonesian nationalists. On August 17, Sukarno and Muhammad Hatta, prominent nationalist leaders, proclaimed Indonesia's independence. This declaration marked the formal beginning of the revolution, igniting a wave of euphoria and nationalistic fervor across the archipelago. However, the path to independence was far from smooth. The Dutch, unwilling to relinquish their colonial possessions, sought to reassert their authority. This led to a bitter and protracted conflict, marked by military clashes, diplomatic maneuvers, and a complex interplay of domestic and international factors. The Indonesian national revolution was not a monolithic struggle. It was a multifaceted movement encompassing diverse political ideologies, regional interests, and social groups. While Sukarno and Hatta led the central government, numerous other factions and organizations emerged, each with their own vision for the future of Indonesia. This diversity, while enriching the revolutionary discourse, also posed significant challenges to unity and cohesion. The revolution was characterized by a combination of armed resistance, diplomatic negotiations, and international lobbying. Indonesian guerrillas, often poorly equipped but fiercely determined, waged a relentless guerrilla war against the Dutch forces. Meanwhile, Indonesian diplomats tirelessly sought international recognition and support for their cause. The international community played a crucial role in the Indonesian struggle for independence. The United States, motivated by Cold War concerns, pressured the Dutch to negotiate with the Indonesians. India, under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru, championed the Indonesian cause in international forums. The United Nations also played a significant role, facilitating negotiations and providing a platform for Indonesian grievances to be heard. After 4 years of bitter conflict, the Dutch, facing mounting international pressure and a resilient Indonesian resistance, finally agreed to transfer sovereignty to the Republic of Indonesia in December 1949. This momentous event marked the culmination of a long and arduous struggle, but it also ushered in a new era of challenges and opportunities for the nascent nation. The Indonesian National Revolution was a watershed moment in the nation's history. It was a testament to the indomitable spirit of the Indonesian people, their yearning for self-determination, and their willingness to sacrifice for a better future. The revolution also had a profound impact on the decolonization movement in Asia and Africa, inspiring other nations to rise up against colonial rule. The legacy of the revolution continues to shape Indonesian society and politics. The values of nationalism, unity, and self-reliance, forged in the crucible of the revolution, remain deeply ingrained in the national psyche. The revolution also laid the groundwork for Indonesia's emergence as a regional power and a key player in international affairs. The Indonesian National Revolution was a complex and multifaceted struggle, encompassing a wide range of actors, ideologies, and interests. It was a testament to the power of nationalistic aspirations, the resilience of a people determined to chart their own destiny, and the transformative potential of collective action. The revolution's legacy continues to inspire and guide the Indonesian nation as it navigates the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. A pivotal moment in Vietnamese history. The Declaration of Independence of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. On September 2, 1945, a momentous event unfolded in the heart of Hanoi, Vietnam. Before a massive crowd gathered in Ba Dinh Square, Ho Chi Minh, the revered leader of the Viet Minh, proclaimed the independence of Vietnam and the establishment of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, the DRV. This declaration marked a watershed moment in Vietnamese history, igniting a decades-long struggle for national liberation and self-determination. The path to independence was paved with decades of colonial subjugation and resistance. From the late 19th century, Vietnam had been part of Indochina under French rule, enduring a system of exploitation and oppression. Vietnamese nationalists, inspired by the ideals of self-determination and anti-colonialism, had long sought to overthrow French rule and establish an independent nation. The Second World War provided a catalyst for the Vietnamese independence movement. The Japanese occupation of Indochina weakened French control and created an opportunity for the Viet Minh, a communist-led nationalist organization, to gain strength and support. Under Ho Chi Minh's leadership, the Viet Minh waged a guerrilla war against the Japanese, establishing their authority in vast areas of the country. With Japan's surrender in August 1945, a power vacuum emerged in Vietnam. The Viet Minh seized the opportunity, quickly establishing control over Hanoi and other major cities. On September 2, Ho Chi Minh, standing on a makeshift platform in Ba Dinh Square, read the Declaration of Independence, a document imbued with the spirit of national liberation and the ideals of democracy and social justice. The Declaration drew inspiration from the American Declaration of Independence and the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. It asserted the inalienable rights of the Vietnamese people to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It condemned colonialism, and declared that all men are created equal. It also outlined the principles of the new republic, emphasizing national unity, social justice, and economic development. However, the path to independence was far from smooth. The French, unwilling to relinquish their colonial empire, returned to Vietnam with the backing of British and American forces. This marked the beginning of the First Indochina War, a brutal conflict that would last for nearly a decade. The Viet Minh, led by General Vo Nguyen Giap, waged a relentless guerrilla war against the French, utilizing their superior knowledge of the terrain and the support of the local population. The war reached a turning point in 1954 with the decisive Battle of Dien Bien Phu, where the Viet Minh forces achieved a stunning victory over the French. The defeat at Dien Bien Phu forced the French to negotiate a peace settlement at the Geneva Conference. The Geneva Accords, signed in July 1954, recognized the independence of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. Vietnam was temporarily divided into two zones, with the Viet Minh controlling the north and a pro-Western regime governing the south. The Declaration of Independence of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam in 1945 was a pivotal moment in Vietnamese history. It marked the formal beginning of the Vietnamese struggle for national liberation and self-determination. The Declaration, with its powerful language and evocative imagery, captured the aspirations of millions of Vietnamese who yearned for freedom and independence. The Declaration also had a profound impact on the international stage, inspiring anti-colonial movements across the globe. It served as a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples everywhere, demonstrating that even the most powerful empires could be defeated through determination, resilience, and unwavering belief in the cause of freedom. The legacy of the Declaration of Independence continues to resonate in Vietnam today. It is a symbol of national pride and unity, a reminder of the sacrifices made by countless Vietnamese in the struggle for independence. The declaration also serves as a guiding principle for the Vietnamese government, inspiring its commitment to national development, social justice, and international cooperation. A turning point in Brazilian history. The 1945 coup d'état. As nations grappled with the challenges of rebuilding and redefining their political landscapes, Brazil experienced a seismic shift in its own political trajectory. On October 29, 1945, a military coup d'état, orchestrated by a coalition of military officers and conservative politicians, overthrew President Getúlio Vargas, marking a turning point in Brazilian history. The roots of the coup can be traced back to the complex and contradictory figure of Getúlio Vargas himself. Vargas, who had ruled Brazil since 1930, initially came to power through a revolution that overthrew the old republic. He implemented a series of populist policies and social reforms, earning him the moniker Father of the Poor. However, his rule was also characterized by authoritarian tendencies, suppression of political opposition, and a close alliance with the military. During the Second World War, Brazil, under Vargas's leadership, sided with the Allies and sent troops to fight in Italy. The war effort, however, exacerbated existing social and economic tensions within the country. Inflation soared, shortages became widespread, and political discontent grew. Vargas's decision to declare war on Germany and Italy further alienated certain sectors of the military and the elite, who saw it as a reckless move that jeopardized Brazil's neutrality. As the war drew to a close, pressure mounted on Vargas to step down and restore democracy. He responded by announcing elections and promising to relinquish power. However, his opponents, fearing that he would rig the elections or cling to power, began plotting a coup. The coup was executed swiftly and efficiently. On the morning of October 29, military units, led by General Gomes Monteiro, surrounded the presidential palace, and demanded Vargas's resignation. Vargas, caught off guard and outnumbered, had little choice but to comply. He was replaced by José Linhares, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who served as interim president until elections could be held. The coup d'état of 1945 was a watershed moment in Brazilian history. It marked the end of Vargas's Estado Novo, a period of authoritarian rule that had lasted for 15 years. It also ushered in a new era of political instability, characterized by a series of coups, counter-coups, and military interventions. The coup had a profound impact on Brazilian society. It polarized the political landscape, pitting supporters of Vargas, who saw him as a champion of the poor and a defender of national sovereignty, against his detractors, who viewed him as a dictator and an obstacle to democracy. The coup also had a chilling effect on political dissent and freedom of expression, as the military sought to consolidate its power and suppress any opposition. The legacy of the coup continues to be debated in Brazil today. Some historians view it as a necessary intervention that prevented Vargas from establishing a dictatorship. Others see it as a betrayal of democracy and a missed opportunity for Brazil to transition peacefully to a more representative and accountable government. Regardless of one's interpretation, there is no denying that the coup d'état of 1945 was a pivotal event in Brazilian history. It marked the end of an era, and the beginning of a new and uncertain chapter in the nation's political development. It also serves as a reminder of the fragility of democracy and the ever-present threat of authoritarianism, even in societies that have ostensibly embraced democratic values and institutions. The events of 1945 continue to shape Brazilian politics and society, serving as a cautionary tale about the perils of political polarization, and the importance of upholding democratic principles and institutions. A prelude to the independence of Jordan. The Treaty of London. The Treaty of London, signed on March 22, 1946, marked a pivotal moment in the history of Jordan, formerly known as Transjordan. This treaty, negotiated between the United Kingdom and the Emirate of Transjordan, formally recognized Transjordan as a sovereign and independent state, thereby ending its status as a British mandate under the League of Nations. However, the treaty's terms and the subsequent events leading to full independence were complex and fraught with political maneuvering. The origins of the treaty can be traced back to the aftermath of the First World War. In the post-war carve-up of the Ottoman Empire, the League of Nations entrusted the United Kingdom with the mandate for Transjordan. The British established a system of indirect rule, appointing Emir Abdullah I as the ruler of the territory while retaining significant control over its foreign affairs, defense, and finances. Under British tutelage, Transjordan made significant strides in political and economic development. Emir Abdullah I proved to be a shrewd and pragmatic leader, navigating the complex regional politics and balancing the interests of various stakeholders. However, as the tide of nationalism swept across the Arab world in the aftermath of the Second World War, the demand for independence grew louder in Transjordan as well. The British government, facing economic constraints and growing anti-colonial sentiment at home, began to reassess its imperial commitments. In 1946, it initiated negotiations with Emir Abdullah, culminating in the signing of the Treaty of London. The treaty granted Transjordan formal independence, allowing it to establish its own government, diplomatic relations, and armed forces. However, the treaty also contained provisions that maintained a degree of British influence. The United Kingdom retained the right to station troops in Transjordan, and to utilize its facilities for military purposes. The treaty also stipulated that Transjordan would consult with the United Kingdom on foreign policy matters and would not enter into any agreements with foreign powers that were detrimental to British interests. The Treaty of London, while a significant step towards independence, did not fully satisfy the aspirations of many Jordanians. The presence of British troops and the constraints on foreign policy were seen as vestiges of colonial control. Nonetheless, the treaty provided a framework for further negotiations and paved the way for full independence. In May 1946, Emir Abdullah I assumed the title of King of Transjordan, and the country was renamed the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan. The newly independent kingdom embarked on a path of nation-building, establishing its own institutions and forging its own identity. However, the road ahead was fraught with challenges, including regional conflicts, economic difficulties, and the influx of Palestinian refugees following the creation of Israel. In 1948, Transjordan played a crucial role in the Arab-Israeli War, capturing the West Bank and East Jerusalem. This expansion of territory led to the renaming of the country as the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan in 1950, reflecting the inclusion of both banks of the Jordan River. The Treaty of London was a landmark agreement that set in motion a chain of events that ultimately led to Jordan's full independence. While the treaty retained certain British prerogatives, it nonetheless marked a significant step towards self-determination. The subsequent years saw Jordan consolidate its independence, forge its own path in regional and international affairs, and emerge as a key player in the Middle East. The treaty's legacy continues to shape Jordan's relations with the United Kingdom and other nations. It serves as a reminder of the complex historical ties between the two countries and the delicate balance between national sovereignty and international cooperation. The Treaty of London, while a product of its time and context, remains a significant milestone in Jordan's journey towards nationhood. A nation divided. The Greek Civil War. The Greek Civil War, a brutal and complex conflict that raged from 1946 to 1949, left a lasting scar on the nation's psyche and shaped its political landscape for decades to come. This internecine conflict, fought between the communist-led Democratic Army of Greece, the DSE, and the Western-backed Greek government forces, was not merely a domestic struggle but a microcosm of the broader geopolitical tensions that characterized the early years of the Cold War. The roots of the Civil War can be traced back to the tumultuous years of the Second World War. Greece, occupied by Axis forces, witnessed the rise of a powerful resistance movement led by the Communist Party of Greece, the KK. The KK's guerrilla forces, known as the National Liberation Front, the EM, played a crucial role in fighting the occupiers and gained widespread popular support. However, as the war drew to a close, the KK's growing influence alarmed the British government, which feared the establishment of a communist regime in Greece. With British backing, a conservative government was installed in Athens, marginalizing the KK and its supporters. This exclusionary policy, coupled with the government's heavy-handed tactics in suppressing dissent, fueled resentment and radicalization among the left. In 1946, the DSE, the armed wing of the KK, launched a guerrilla war against the government. The DSE, supported by neighboring communist states such as Yugoslavia, Albania, and Bulgaria, initially made significant gains, capturing large swathes of territory and threatening to overthrow the government. The Greek government, bolstered by British and later American military and financial aid, responded with a brutal counterinsurgency campaign. The conflict quickly escalated into a bloody civil war, characterized by atrocities committed by both sides. Villages were razed, civilians were massacred, and political opponents were imprisoned or executed. The Civil War had a devastating impact on Greek society. Families were torn apart, communities were destroyed, and the economy was shattered. The conflict also fueled deep-seated political divisions that would continue to haunt the nation for years to come. The tide of the war turned in favor of the government forces in 1948, thanks to increased American aid, and the DSE's strategic blunders. By 1949, the DSE had been defeated, and the Civil War officially ended. However, the conflict left a legacy of bitterness, distrust, and political instability. The Greek Civil War was not merely a domestic conflict. It was a proxy war between the Western powers and the Soviet bloc. The United States, driven by the Truman Doctrine of containing communism, provided massive military and economic aid to the Greek government. The Soviet Union, in turn, supported the DSE, viewing the conflict as an opportunity to expand its influence in the Balkans. The Greek Civil War had far-reaching consequences for both Greece and the wider world. It solidified Greece's alignment with the West and paved the way for its entry into NATO in 1952. The conflict also intensified the Cold War rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, setting the stage for future proxy wars in Korea and Vietnam. For Greece, the civil war left a legacy of trauma and division. The conflict's brutality and the deep-seated political polarization it engendered left lasting scars on the nation's psyche. The memory of the Civil War continues to shape Greek politics and society, serving as a reminder of the devastating consequences of ideological conflict and the importance of national unity. The Greek Civil War was a complex and multifaceted conflict with a profound and enduring legacy. It was a war fought not only on the battlefield but also in the hearts and minds of the Greek people. Its impact reverberated far beyond Greece's borders, shaping the course of the Cold War and influencing the geopolitical landscape of the post-war era. The Civil War serves as a reminder of the human cost of conflict and the importance of reconciliation and unity in building a peaceful and prosperous future. In the next chapter, we will explore the Nuremberg trials, as well as the Truman Doctrine, and the founding of America's most controversial agency, the CIA.